I would like to ask one question first.
Go on. Go on.
It's a very general question. What drives you in what you're doing? Is this correct English to say what drives you?
Should be, but I understand what you mean. Look, I will say that I come to deal with history from my political activism. I don't come to deal with Lebanon's past, violent past mainly, from an academic point of view. And this perhaps explains why my questioning and the questioning of my colleagues is always, how did we do what we did, and not how does this or that happened. So I would say that Umam's approach is impressed with this twin questioning about history but also ethics. And just to close this answer, it's what makes me feel that there is no contradiction at all between what I perform as a political activist and what I do on the field of the so-called civil society.
Okay.
In terms of, I mean, to put it, even if it will seem a bit an oxymoron, I don't see a contradiction between being politically engaged and being at the same time non-partisan in some parts of my work.
So now but there's this certain thing, a certain problem in Lebanon with the civil society, if there is any. So I would think, from what I know from your work and also from your film, which I saw, I would think that building up a civil society is one of your really central interests, especially in Lebanon. For example, I read that you are doing these courses for women in South Lebanon to learn English.
In all Lebanon, let's say.
In all Lebanon.
Mainly rural areas.
Rural areas, okay.
No, because I think that, or let me put it like this. If anything could make sense in what we or other people do, is to finally reach a certain level of state building. It's not to build up a civil society or to teach women in rural areas English or whatever else. It's finally to reach a certain level of political development, which hopefully will allow us to live as normal people.
As citizens.
Normal, regular citizens.
Yes.
I mean by this, how to reach to the point where we stop living in a kind of state of exception. Would it be under the pretext of being heroes or being victims? I think that we need to get out of this obsession of either being heroes or victims. And I don't think that it's less political than any kind of activism to seek this kind of normalcy.
No, not at all.
And in this sense, I would say that, for example, Hezbollah nowadays in Lebanon is the full example of the maintain of the state of exception.
Mm-hmm.
And in this sense, it gives a bad example for others. We can say the same about other organizations and about other groups around the Middle East or even beyond the Middle East.
Well, but and Hezbollah in special has this geschlossen, we would say, this closed.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the design things, the flags and so on, and there's a closed ideology and so. It's not really, but at the same time, Hezbollah, as I understand it, how do you say, pretends like, or being the only one who can guarantee state-like things. And this is a strategy of Hezbollah, isn't it? So we are not corrupt. We are the ones who are defending the borders. We are the ones who feed the people, and so on. But it's all.
No, I don't know what Hezbollah think of itself.
Yeah.
But I think that also it represents a kind of fascination for outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I liked your film,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of your efforts to distance yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking this afternoon about your approach, and I think that finally in your film you reproduced a kind of scheme of what a religious object could be.
Pardon?
What a religious object could be.
Yes.
I was thinking at the beginning of your film when we see you trying to reach out to that media center.
Mm-hmm.
And this gave me the idea, perhaps right or wrong, that from the beginning you had the impression that this is a kind of sacred object that I cannot access directly,
Mm-hmm.
that I need a mediator,
Mm-hmm.
that it's so scary
Mm-hmm.
that finally I need a guide, like in some temples,
Mm-hmm.
that I can't go there by my own, even when you try to set up your camera in a hidden way, then you retract.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Hezbollah for me is interesting as an object because it still exerts this kind of fearful fascination.
Mm.
And in this sense, it's exactly the opposite of what a normal political life requires.
Mm.
In a state of normalcy, criticism is possible. Wandering in the streets is possible. You don't need a guide everywhere you go. You can use your camera without any fear.
Mm-hmm.
So in this sense, I think that your film is really interesting.
But
No, it's interesting in the sense that it shows also how research and artistic research can produce, in a way, an object of religiosity.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. I'm really not sure about what I did and what I showed today. Because
But you said that your first rough cut was of 2 hours and a half.
Yes.
Can I ask you what did you discard from these 2 hours and a half to make the film of 70 or 80 minutes? I don't remember. What
70
was...
minutes. So there's, for example, a long interview with Saeed Jafar Fadlallah.
So this you kicked out?
Yes, I kicked out because I didn't. It was I wanted to put it on the last, and I was not sure how to get it connected, and also my questions weren't so. How should I say? It didn't really turn out well, but because I didn't work good. The other thing is there's the Friday prayers, which I'm not sure if to take them inside the film. Then there's a talk in the library of
Fadlallah.
Yes, of Fadlallah. And there's one scene which unfortunately isn't caught by the camera. Because so there's this the head of the library, she's showing us everything and so, and she also speaks very fluent English and then we approach the philosophy section, and then there I see Deleuze, Foucault and Feuerbach. And then I pull out Feuerbach. I said, "This is atheist. Why do you have this?" And well, firstly, she doesn't know who Feuerbach is, and then she was a bit shy and so. And she said, "Oh yes, well, it's about we need everything." And then also the camera didn't caught this up. This would be that really
tell
interested
me more
me.
about this kind of twin shooting. We see you finally filming, and there is someone filming you.
Yes, the first time I was on my own, when I was in Melita, and then the second time I took I had a DP with me. So the first time I did all by my own. This was also when I did this interview with Rami Hassan in Melita, and the second time also because I wanted to be more in the film myself. And also it's not so easy.
And I think that the film does not have a title yet.
Yes, it does.
It has. I didn't notice it.
Well, the English version is the existence of God in a falsely installed contemporary. This would be the question. Because what I was looking for were religious questions, theological questions. These were my questions. And what I found interesting is that even with, say, Jafar Fadlallah, but all these Hezbollah actors, they didn't answer my religious questions.
But this is very interesting. First of all, I think that it's very good that you took out this part of your film, because it shows that finally, when you dig in this pool called Hezbollah, you will not find any religiosity.
No.
Or if there is, you will not be allowed to see it. Actually, I was thinking at your question when you asked me, will they be upset if they send them this version of the film?
Yeah.
And I think that they will be upset about one sentence or two sentences only. When the guy in Risalat talks about Shia civilization. If they had to ask you to take out something, it will be this sentence.
Yes? Okay.
Of course, because they will never be proud of highlighting themselves as Shia.
Okay.
They will lose a lot by not being described as Muslims. So
I thought Shiites were Muslims.
Historically, I don't know if Shia are Muslims or not, but obviously the Shia identity is a political identity which is built up against the Sunnah. They will not like to highlight it. Anyway, I think that Hezbollah is not the big deal. The big deal now in the region is how this model of finally closed groups creating parallel societies is not only emerging but developing. Perhaps it could seem totally insane to say that what these Islamist groups are doing in Syria or it would seem totally insane to say that it's parallel to what Hezbollah did and does in Lebanon. But for me, it's again the creation of closed parallel societies that is the most important. Each small group taking itself for a chosen one and trying to find its own way for salvation.
And the salvation is always something, you say, it comes after this earthly life.
No, it comes in this earthly life by creating the separate society.
Okay.
As you saw, finally, okay, beyond this life is something, but why are these groups making so much effort to enforce their own laws here and now? It's because salvation is happening now, and no one has a guarantee. And because finally all this is not about only religion, it's about finally power.
Yes, but there was, this promise of salvation. It's also it also happens in other structures. We have this in the capitalist, in the what we call now neoliberal. I don't know if this term is working anymore. And we have this promise of salvation in the individualism and in the consume society and so on. And this, but perhaps
but
this
you
goes
said
in
the word.
direction.
This works only in a society which accepts the notion and the concept of individual.
Yes.
But finally, when you are talking about a group dynamic, the group itself consider that its salvation is something which concerns the whole group and not only members of this group. So in this sense, Daesh, those Islamists operating now in North Syria or Hezbollah, or I don't know which new neo-Nazi group in South America will think itself as a group and not as an individual. And this is one of the bigger problems, because finally how to create a modern political system when a group is just considering itself one body.
Yes.
So it's the totally opposite of modern politics, where finally each individual is a vote, where each individual counts.
Has its own destiny.
Has its own destiny and can decide for him or herself.
Well, it's not long. Like 2 months ago, I finally read Salman Rushdie's Satanic Verses, which I then liked very much.
Neither me. I found it a bit exciting at the beginning, then turns boring.
Yes, perhaps. No, I found it boring in the beginning, and then okay. But there's one sentence where he says the opposite of belief is not atheism, but doubt. Atheism is like belief. These are both systems or perhaps dispositives also, which are sure about themselves. But the opposite to both of them would be the doubt. So doubt is really it's something else than skepticism. It's something deeper, I would say. Something which also includes your own self, which is and so what do you think with this what is missing is this doubt thing?
Okay, we can make this. We can agree on this kind of of differentiation between skepticism and doubt, and say that skepticism is the search for a belief and doubt is this kind of floating state where everything is called into question and where everything is in a way moving and fluid. But I think that this also brings us back to finally individualism. I mean, a belief is also the proper of a group.
Mm-hmm.
A group can believe in something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a group can be skeptical about its own image, about itself, but finally doubt is really a very personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps, I'm not sure, we can venture and say that there is some values which do not apply but to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And there is other values which finally can apply to individuals and groups.
Mm-hmm.
And there is values which apply only to groups.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what would this individual be? Because in a sort of like left-wing European criticism on the individualism, we always said, for example, before you can be a self-reflective individuum, there are certain things which have to be there. So the one thing is education, also,
Mm-hmm.
but the other thing is also family structures.
Mm-hmm.
So which and then comes all this like psychoanalytic things about what drives your action. With the subconscious is individualism. In this enlightened version of the bürgerliches Subjekt, as we say, is this at any also? So it was criticized as a form of ideology, as you know. So what do you
I think
say
that
then?
it was criticized because it was setting finally standard for what an individual is, while as an individual want always to be beyond all standards.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this sense, I think that each one of us, if he or her recognizes himself or herself as an individual, is because the effort that he or she does to go beyond the standard which is set by the book.
Mm-hmm.
But this said, we cannot finally deny that even the criticism which is addressed to individualism is in a way a product of the individualistic age.
Okay, yes. Uh-huh.
So we should not also bluff ourselves or cheat on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in this sense, we should be happy that we are able to really not only self-criticize ourselves, but also criticize the foundation
Mm-hmm.
of our own critic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in order to go to these questions of criticizing individualism, you have to be an individuum, of course.
And so, for example, when you go to Beirut
Yes.
and you come back to your students, you share with them your experience of the city in general?
Yes.
Or, I mean,
Well, I
as
told
what?
them.
As a kind of individual experience? As part of your research? As what?
With my students,
Mm-hmm.
especially, well, they don't know much about. For example, it would take hours to define the difference between Hezbollah and Al Qaeda.
No, I'm not talking about Hezbollah, Qaeda. This is about, for example,
Just
when
about
you
what?
go to Beirut,
Yeah.
as a city, and what do you share about this?
That's an interesting question. What I share is, of course, at the first sight, a touristic view.
Mm-hmm.
Then the people I met,
Mm-hmm.
which are just a certain part. Now, the first time I was in Beirut, I was invited to Docu Days,
Mm-hmm.
and I simply found it sort of funny because these guys are all Shiites, and I have been to Najaf and so because I'm trying to setting up another project there, and these Shiites
Mm-hmm.
defining themselves as Shiites, sort of a bit, and being proud of that also too, but being very trinkfest, as we say, drinking alcohol. And the Shiites I met in Iraq were really a different sort of Shiites. And so that I've found fascinating, but of course these are just very isolated views or so on. And then of course of the city I have a bit, I have some experience with Naples because I have relatives there, and I have been visiting Naples since in the last 15 years from time to time. And there are some things which are really parallel. It's like you come to the city and you're flashed because it's so beautiful. There's the sea, and so it's the climate, and then everything is so exotic. And you come somewhere where everybody says it's dangerous, but when you come there as a tourist, it's not dangerous because you're the cow who has to be milked. Nobody. But I know from my people who live there how hard it is to live there. So because it's so closed. My cousin, she's an architect, and she told me she had a job doing a facade, and when she was talking with her entrepreneur, a guy came with a scooter, and he said to her entrepreneur, "So I have to get my share now, my 10%, otherwise I'll chop your head off." And it was in the presence of her, and she said, "This is Naples. This is something you don't experience with this touristic view." And so knowing Naples rather well, I could imagine how it would be in Beirut or even worse. And one thing I share was, and there, in this case, we perhaps come to decolonizing whatever. I went to the Mataf al-Watani, to the National Museum, and there I saw this beautiful sarcophags.
The sarcophag, okay, in the basement, you mean?
Yes, in the basement, these sarcophags, which reminded me to the, how they called it in Berlin, that's another thing. They have these reliefs with the scenes from the Trojan War, which are really very, very well done. It's so beautiful how this you see Hector suffering and Achel and whatever, and there I stood with my German humanistic education, because we Germans are so obsessed by Greece, Nietzsche, Hölderlin, and whatever, and then I thought, okay, so here's this, and I found myself with this. Okay, I'm this German guy, and why is this here? Of course, and then I asked my friends there.
We didn't import them, be sure.
Huh?
I'm joking. We didn't import them from Greece.
No, of course.
Obviously.
Of course there's this own
whole Hellenistic
Überlieferung.
culture.
Yes.
Of course.
And this is something
Knowing that
I really have to confess.
Which year was it?
This was 2012. I was there at Docu Days.
Because really the most beautiful, perhaps, object that we can see at this museum, and that which is really a rarity, is at the entrance what we call the Astarte chair, this kind of throne.
Yeah.
which was recently found.
It's when you come inside, it's on the left side.
Yes, it's at the entrance. It's kind of.
No. And then I found it interesting to ask my Lebanese friends. I just wanted to know how
if they visited the.
No, of course they visited. So just how is this antique mythology? How is this überliefert? We say in German. Is this transmitted? Sorry, is this something sort of like coming back with that? Because that would be the colonialist thing, no? Bringing civilization, bringing culture to somewhere else. But this is where the
culture emerged.
Yes, and if there is there a continuous transmission or not?
This is a very good question, but we should not forget that finally fight about Lebanon's archaeology is a component of our long civil wars. And it's not by chance that if you go next time to Lebanon and you decide to go and visit the temple of Baalbek, on your way, you will no more be able to see the famous Roman columns because now they are overshadowed by a huge, overwhelming mosque built thanks to Iranian money.
Okay.
So finally it brings us back also to your film, but don't think that war over history is ever over, even when we don't express it directly. Perhaps there was times where we weren't spelling out the disagreement about all this, but each was anyway plotting in his corner to see how to overcome these components of the Eastern Mediterranean history. It's not by chance that now, what do we hear often since 2 years in Syria? Destruction of monuments. Not only of new statues, but also of old monuments. So,
and with researching or telling history, or it's like where to re-territorialize yourself and your group, as Deleuze perhaps would have said. I was in Najaf, and I don't know if you know this book from Yitzhak. Well, I can tell you. Huh? He's a.
I think
sort
that
of
I
like
know Nakash.
Yes,
Isaac Nakash.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah. And he wrote this history on the Shiite.
I know.
And then there's a story with the Euphrates. And Najaf, the Najaf was thirsty, and so on. And then the Indian Shiite, they built this channel.
Yes.
And the Euphrates now is the channel. It's not the origin. It's true, isn't it? Okay.
Personally, I can't say if it's true or not, but I read it in Nakash's books.
Yeah. Okay. But of course, everybody there would say,
which is a fascinating book, though. There is a lot of small approximation, but it's a book that I like.
And when I was there, and I think this is also like with something what happens in Melita. It's about defining what was before, defining where we come from. Isn't it
I'm not sure that the comparison stands, because on one hand it was a drive of a community, on the other hand you have a kind of, let's say, organization, super organization, deciding that now it's the time to create a memorial. You see, so I'm not sure that what makes a community do something is similar to what a Stalinistic organization decides to do. So in this sense, I think we need to be a bit careful, especially about these kind of shortcuts.
Okay. 5 minutes. So, I want to ask you then a question about Massacre, about your film. So now I have to be careful.
No, don't be careful. It's better if you are not careful. So just for those who are listening to us, Massacre is a film about 6 individuals who participated manually in the massacre of Sabra and Shatila, which took place in 1982.
They are phalangists. You say? No.
The 6 that we see in the film belong, yes, to the Phalange party, to the Kataib or Phalange party, and all 6 in the film are, yes, Christian. But I can assure, based on our research, which is continuing, that the responsibility for this massacre goes beyond the Phalange.
Okay, yes, of course. But in this film, there are these 6 individuals, and they share with the public their actions, but also their perceptions. So it's very, and this is even stronger as we don't see their faces because they have to be protected. And so, but it's very much about perception from this certain moment. Like there's this, the one guy says his colleague or he raped this woman, and then
he reenacts the rape.
Yes, and then he kills it, and so it's so it's not analytical at all.
True.
No. I don't know. What was your would come back to my first question, was what drove you by doing this in this specific way, questioning them and letting them with this perception thing.
In a way, this brings me back to my first remark also. For me it was about what did we do, not how did it happen. So what did we do means first that we need to tell, quote unquote, our truth, if not the truth. And then we can compose what happened. I think that this was, giving face, giving voice to these 6 guys, knowing that finally that as filmmaker I could be accused of, let's say, being complacent, being condescending, was the only way to really say, let's go beyond moral condemnation. Because I think that moral condemnation is a lot of times a way to escape the problem. It's the easy solution, finally, to say this is evil, this is good. And in this sense, we don't, in this sense, how to go beyond good and evil, if not by respelling letter by letter the evil and recomposing it, even if it makes it more even more evil.
Yes. I wanted to say worse, but more evil is something else than worse.
No, it's worse, but
no, because evil. You said evil. You didn't say bad. Worse is the comparative of
you
bad.
Are right. You are right. So in this sense, it was finally, obviously, the fact of working on this project around the year 2000 wasn't it. I don't think that it happened by chance. It was the year where finally it was. Well, it was possible. Sorry. Well, it was possible to go back to all this. Finally, we found ourselves relieved. It was the year of the Israeli withdrawal. It was when we started asking the Syrian troops to leave the country.
Yeah.
So we were feeling that we are free, let's say, to break all taboos and to talk about all subjects.
Okay.